In terms of free agency moves, you mentioned some of them there. We'll start with Van Riemsdyk because he's an interesting one. 1 year, $1 million. It's interesting. This Bruins team, you put this team on paper in like 2014. Ooh, you have a cup favorite. But I think JVR brings some value for net front presence guy you can throw on the power play. If he is, the opening night, second line left wing with Zacha and Pasternak, we haven't really been given a huge indication on who that might be because it's July 3rd. But if that is him, you can expect some production playing next to Zacha and Pasternak. Is it riveting and exciting and, must watch? Not really. But I don't know. I think there's some potential there to at least kind of do something. It's not a complete black hole on that left side.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see how Van Riemsdyk does. Again, I think that the jury's going to be out on whether he's like your locked-in second-line player there. Like, you'd ideally probably want him more in the third line, but such is the hand you've kind of been dealt. But in terms of, I think when you look at all these different players that they signed, it's all about, I think, just what their roles are and how it fits into what the Bruins are trying to do this year. And if Van Riemsdyk can park himself in front of the on the net front on the first power play, clean up plays, was known, for years as a guy who also had a really good touch around the net in terms of making those quick plays. Maybe not as good as Bertuzzi was, but adds that extra development at a lot cheaper price range. So I think you look at just what he brings, what like a guy like Shattenkirk does in Clifton's spot, and just what the payout is in terms of, like him, Geeky, Van Riemsdyk, a few of these other players for what the price range is. If you're able to still field a roster with these guys that can still, carry out whatever you're trying to look for them in that specific spot, while also keeping the door open for allowing younger players to incorporate themselves into the lineup, like, people can look at just the Bruins free agent signings here. And yes, they're not groundbreaking, they're not headline stealing, what have you, but I think you look at just what their plan is this year. I think for your Bruins fan, you should be, maybe not excited is the right word, but I think you should look forward to this year finally having a little bit more clarity in terms of just where the team is going. And again, it's tough to say that this offseason where we're still waiting to hear about Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci. That's still the biggest domino that needs to fall. But I think you look at this season and how they've built it out, you're going to see what guys like Lucic and Van Riemsdyk can bring, and what those roles are. And I think you keep those expectations in check. But you look at like what a guy like Geeky can bring. Can he be like another guy like Zacha who can maybe take a step forward, more minutes? I think finally you're going to see more clarity in terms of the future of the team in terms of prospects, right? Like, is Van Riemsdyk the starting, second line guy? But what if Merkulov makes a push there? What if a guy like Beecher or Lauko, settle into the fourth line and fight for minutes next to a guy like Patrick Brown, or even Geeky if he's kind of pushed into that role? I think for the Bruins, it's, you're dealt a pretty crappy hand, but in terms of how many roster spots you had to fill and what these guys can provide in terms of what their set roles are going to be, you can see what the line of thinking was for the Bruins. And if the crappy hand they were dealt leads to this year where you can still arguably be competitive, which I'm sure we'll touch on, throughout this offseason in terms of just how viable they are this year. If you can bridge this year with still solid pieces, incorporate young talent, and then we obviously look to 2024, you're kind of making the most of a pretty crappy hand.
Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets.